My guest today is Jay H Tepley, an author, entrepreneur, international speaker, and spiritual mentor. A lifelong geek and dedicated researcher, she offers world class personal training for A players in marketing, coaching, and community building to help them fly high and achieve beyond what other people think possible by aligning their sole purpose. Over the last 20 years, her New Era superhero program showed many men across the globe the path to increase revenue, success, impact, and personal fulfillment. Her charity work supporting mental health through lightsaber training has been featured on The Guardian, The Jeremy Vine Show, and BBC One. When she's not teaching or writing, she enjoys reading about Japan, where she studied and lived for a time. She speaks fluent Japanese, and a recent unique novel, the Light Watch series, begins in Tokyo. Jay, welcome.
Hello there.
It's good to have you on again. We always have great and insightful, in depth conversations. But today, I'd really like to start this off by really curious about what brought you into this journey to help men with their mission and their purpose in particular.
Right. Well, that's a good one because for many years I was actually hesitating to say that I was helping guys. I mean, I worked only with men, but in my marketing, I wouldn't say that. But I realized over the years that really our time is now changing. We are transcending the old paradigm, and not just the paradigm of reality and how our society works, but also thinking, doing business, and seeing the world in general. And as I was looking around, there weren't really people who would prepare the guys, especially young guys, for the path ahead, for what this new world is giving us, the challenges, but also the opportunities. And I've been doing my work for over 20 years now, I think 25 years in total. And I have the tools, the techniques, and the strategies that are designed to uniquely work and empower men on their journey. And I think it's really important because our society right now, as a whole, lacks purpose and lacks healthy, strong sense of masculinity.
It's so true. And one of those journeys in particular is a superhero's journey. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that means for modern men and entrepreneurs today?
Absolutely. So you can see this book in the background, The Superhero's Journey. So this is the book. I would recommend checking it out. And you might have heard of The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell, which is quite famous about the change that we experience through a journey, through a trial. And if you look at most books and movies are based on that idea that
Mhm.
there was a guy who meets a mentor, usually some strange otherworldly creature or some wise man, and he or she takes him on an adventure and they come back transformed. And I think this concept is so important for personal transformation as well, because the reason why people should even contemplate having a mentor, say in business or especially in personal development, is that they get the opportunity to transcend their current reality and their current thinking and come back with a gift transformed. And so the superhero's journey is about taking this onto the next level in the context of a modern man and modern business owner who wants to serve the world greatly. And thing is, if you want to serve the world greatly, you have to become someone who can. So just wanting is not enough. You actually have to live your old life and your old ego behind and adopt a completely different paradigm of reality and a system of values in order to make that happen. And so, one of those values and one of those angles of seeing reality that is really important to embrace and understand on a deeper level is that we are not just purely physical beings. We have this physical experience, but we really are divine beings. And that part of us often doesn't get acknowledged. And if we forget about it, our life never feels truly meaningful and fulfilling. And so the superhero's journey explains the reader how to embrace that hidden but really powerful part of themselves so they can transform their life, their business, and serve the world greatly.
Yeah, and I personally read it myself, and I'm very familiar with Joseph Campbell's work at the general hero's journey, and I really like how this seems to be a lot more updated to the modern times because as times change, we need a new version 2.0 of how this ultimately
Yeah.
works, or we're going to be left in the times. What do you so a lot of entrepreneurs today, they may know what the hero's journey is, and maybe they're just starting their own journey, but with most entrepreneurs you work with, what challenges are you finding that they struggle with the most?
Right. So usually guys come to me when they've tried self-development for a while and they've realized that something is not working, that they can, let's say, get to a certain level, both with their perceived evolution and self-development, but also their business and the revenue. And once it hits that certain level, it just plateaus. And suddenly there seemed to be no way out or no way forward. Like one of my students told me that, when you get to a certain level of success and you have several businesses, passive income, all those markers of luxury lifestyle, everything they told you that you should have. And he had that. And then he was like, okay, but now what?
Hmm.
It just seems like I've achieved and there is nothing beyond that. And he even said that he felt like, right, it's like his life was over almost, like everything was going to be downhill from there. And when I showed him that it's just the beginning, he was talking in one of his interviews with me how excited he was because it was almost like being 20 again or being 18
Mhm.
again and starting your new journey like with a completely new eyes but with the skill set and resources that you didn't have back then, but now you're in a so much more powerful position to really make the difference that you were born to make.
Yeah, that's really interesting. A lot of comedians joke about the deferred life plan. Like you go to school, you get the job, you get the white picket fence, the 2.5 kids, then you eventually get
Yeah,
retired. And then, the stats are a couple years after that, most people are passing away, which is a tragedy. And I think a big portion of that is people losing their purpose, in the whole process of all that. But I think what you're saying is like no matter what age you are, as an entrepreneur, otherwise as a man, you can you can really start your new journey at any one of these times and doing it the right way that's updated with the modern times. And I'm
yeah,
sure you've just seen existing clients or people you've talked or worked with, just how fast progress they can make when they adopt type of style or system that's really updated and one that works with them.
absolutely. Yeah, it's so true. Once you do things the right way, you just skyrocket your progress.
Yeah, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs, some are focused on self-development, some are, but for the ones that are focused, um, what's wrong with modern self-development today? It seems to have a lot of cookie cutter types of approaches that's not working for a lot of people. They'll start for a little bit, they'll fall off. What do you think is wrong with it, with this approach in general?
All right. Well, there are several things that are wrong. Firstly, I wish they would tell guys straight away that their methods are not actually designed to empower the male mind. And nobody's talking about it, but it becomes really clear once you know what to look for. Because you see, there is a big difference in how the masculine and the feminine mind work, how they perceive reality, and how they achieve their goals. And so, right now, this self-development is designed to empower women actually, which is okay for women but not okay for guys. And so if someone tries to do it, especially if they really go 100% and try for several years, it actually dilutes your sense of masculinity and it makes you weaker. And with that come two things. Firstly, if someone steps away from their sense of masculinity, they feel disempowered. They feel like a victim in their own life. And their external circumstances start to reflect that as well. And so they become more prone to anxiety and feeling like an imposter and just feeling not good enough. So all those things that actually then hinder your business progress because they interfere with your decision making. Because if you feel not good enough, you're not going to do the right thing at the right time, right? So it makes sense.
Mhm.
And so this is one part of it. And another part is that, all this wasted time that you could be doing something else, something better, that you could be actually developing yourself, is lost forever. So if someone does that old way of self-development, then they not just don't benefit the way they could, but they have years of lost time sometimes. And that brings obviously the sense of missed opportunities and feeling like, what am I doing with my life in general? And especially for men right now, another negative part is that nobody talks about the new times. Nobody talks about the masculinity of the new era. Meanwhile, every era of human consciousness has its own way of expressing both masculinity and femininity in the most optimal way possible. And so the previous era, the era of Pisces, so right now we are in the era of Aquarius. So the era of Pisces had feminine energy and very different ideas to what we have now. And so many of those quote unquote schools of masculinity try to make guys basically role play those ideas from 100, 200 to 1,000 years back, which are no longer relevant. Not because masculinity is no longer relevant, but the way they expressed it back then was consistent with that time. Now we need something consistent with our time. So it's like the system I teach is consistent with our times. So it gives you the ultimate advantage over everyone else. Because if you try to do things the old way, it's going to put you at a disadvantage. It's maybe harder to see in self-development, but it's easy to see in business. I'm going to give a business example. So imagine that you decided to set up a business, but you did it the way people would do it in the early 20th century. You would have no website, no social media, no mobile phone. You would have a landline, and all you would ever do, you would advertise in yellow pages. And you would just open a local shop, and that would be it. So I think your business would fail
Pretty
in
fast.
under a month, right? And it's so clear when you think about it this way. Now those guys are doing the same thing with self-development, and I think it's just the wrong thing to do.
Mm.
And if someone values their life, their time, and they want to really manifest themselves as the greatest version, the man they were born to be, a smart thing to do is to do things aligned with you as a man. Same like with your nutrition, with your exercise. You don't just do random stuff like anything you find out there. You first make sure that they align with your body,
Mm.
and that the nutrition is the right type of nutrition for you, that the exercise is the right level of exercise for your level of fitness and your goals.
Mm.
So with self-development, it should be like that as well.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, it reminds me of clients that I work with, and supplementation. So many of them take something from a guru online, someone from the local supplement store, the pharmacist, and they have this supplement graveyard of everything they're taking, but they don't actually know why until you actually test them to see what
Yeah.
specific might, and then they reduce like their supplement load by like 85%, and they save a ton of money long term because it's not this machine gun auto fire. It's like a precise sniper like approach. And here, like with self development, you have to think about the opportunity cost. You have to do the right thing at the right time. And the more consistent you do that over time, the better off you're just going to be. And you have to think about the opportunity cost of things that are happening there. So those are for like the entrepreneurs who have done a little bit, into self help. How about people who haven't started any kind of self development and they're thinking, well, I'll get to this once I get my business off the ground. What's wrong with this side of the coin?
Well, usually when someone says that to me, I go like, "What's wrong with you?" Because growing a business without growing yourself is impossible. And someone even said, I love this quote, that entrepreneurship is self-development in disguise, because you have to evolve as a human
Right.
being if you want to make your business grow. Because you see, the mindset of you starting the business and the mindset of you doing 5, 10, 100 million a month, these are two very different people. That version of you from the future is a very different version of you you're living through right now. So let's say if you make 10K a month, this version of you right now is a completely different version to you doing 100K. And obviously you realize that once you get there, but it's important to realize that beforehand. So some people unfortunately get it backwards, and I think it's also a remnant from the old era where people would just be so focused on the physical reality only, and that would work for them back then because, well, it was the time that could make it work. And right now we live in a different time, and so we have to do things that the current era, the current time requires of us if we want to win, obviously. Because thing is, you can't win against the flow of time. So you either go with the flow and you win big, or you get washed away and left by the wayside. And I know it sounds a bit harsh, but it's just the truth of it. So this current of time, imagine it like a river, right? And so if you want to get to your goals faster, it's a smart move to just use that current to take you there, because it's moving there, it's moving into the future, right? And so you want to use the power of that stream, you want to harness it. And by doing self-development, you give yourself such a massive advantage that it's difficult even to express in words. You have to experience that. But once you experience even a little bit, then you will be like, wow,
Yeah.
where has all that stuff been all my life?
Yeah.
But the trick is you need to do it right.
Right. And it, like, who doesn't want to do it the easier way, right? Like, we're all, even based on evolution, we're trying to save time and energy and adapt to our environment. So if you can adapt to these times, I think everything is just going to be easier, more in the flow. And that might be hard for some more, materialistic type of people to relate with, but just try it for a little while and see how it goes and run a test and see the results for yourself. Cause I can attest it for myself
Exactly.
and other people too. And that would honestly be my response to them. And, so bring this to kind of like step by step. So what can people do? In your book, The Superhero's Journey, you talk about, one is developing your personal manifesto. Can you talk about why that's so important?
Right. So your personal manifesto, translated into simple English, is the way you see yourself, your self-concept. And with most people, they have a terrible self-concept. And the reason why it's terrible is because usually it's not even designed by them. Most people carry a self-concept which they actually borrowed from someone else who also had no idea what they're doing. And so they operate, it's like, imagine you have a computer that is modern, but the OS on it is like Windows 95. And then you wonder why nothing, absolutely nothing starts. Like no matter what app or what program you try to download, nothing starts. It's because that OS is outdated and it doesn't support those programs. So in a real life setting, what it means is that most people have this outdated personal concept, which they're not even aware of. So they think of themselves a certain way that is not accurate in relation to who they are, and B, is not aligned with them achieving their goals. So certain self-concepts actually work against you. And I'm going to go to give a really easy example. For example, if someone thinks that deep down they're a loser and they don't deserve good things, guess what? All their decisions outwards, even though they say they want success and they want to achieve greatly, because they believe those things deep down, they're going to make the decisions that reflect those beliefs, because obviously we act in congruence with our beliefs and what we think is true. So
Mhm.
whatever you think of yourself as true manifests in your life. And this
Mhm.
is why designing your personal concept consciously is one of the most important things on your journey that you can do. And by the way, you can download your purpose audit for free from my website and just start your journey straight away. But even if you don't do anything else, just fixing this one thing is going to create a massive difference.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs, sometimes successful. They're trying to prove dad wrong, or they're trying to prove somebody wrong from years
Yeah,
ago, or some bully, and they're like, I'm going to prove them right. And it's kind of a dirty energy you're running from. Kind of
yeah,
gives you that dirty high, but it's exhausting. It's not like a clean energy. And to me, that's going against the current. That's going upstream.
yeah.
Whereas if you build this personal manifesto, kind of let that old stuff go. And there's ways to do that. I know you talk about that, just makes it so much easier. And you find that like this monetary success, this freedom success, everything else just comes a whole lot easier. Would you say that's right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because once you fix your mind, everything else falls into place.
Mhm. Yeah, so true. Now, one thing along these lines, a lot of people talk about, I'm seeing more in the entrepreneur communities, is ikigai. And I'll actually let you explain maybe what it is and how does that take people away from their purpose?
Well, the concept of ikigai is a Japanese word, and the concept of it that was designed. Actually, it was designed recently in the 200s, but it's not a good concept, and I know it's been blown up to enormous, absolutely enormous proportions. And I think people who subscribe to it, if they're listening to this now, they will be like, how dare you talking about it negatively because it's the most awesome thing ever. Marketing wise, it is the most awesome thing ever. And I agree. So if you want to be sold on something, then yeah, that's perfect because the way they designed it caters to your ego desires perfectly. It basically tells you that you don't need to do anything and you just find something that you enjoy doing and figure out how to get other people pay for it and off you go, you're living your
Yeah.
purpose. And it's just not the way it works. And I'm sorry to bring this up, but what we really want to do as human beings, or your soul rather, your deeper inner self wants to do is to grow. And the way Ikigai has been designed right now, it doesn't actually allow you to grow. All it does, it encourages you to stagnate and remain complacent. Because let's say, okay, so if you're already good at something, it means that you've been doing it for a while usually. And even if not, if you're good at it, it's a lesson learned. Your soul
Mhm.
doesn't want to keep repeating it.
Mhm.
And if you like doing something, again, if you make it into a business, usually it takes the joy out of that thing or activity. And combined, they actually pull you away from your purpose because, as I
Mhm.
explained, there is no growth. You try to just repeat things that you're already good at because you're in your comfort zone. When living your purpose
Yeah.
for real means going outside of your comfort zone, abandoning your comfort zone, and constantly growing, constantly challenging yourself. And so, what the real ikigai should look like is doing things that scare you, that
Mhm.
stretch your comfort zone, that makes you feel nervous and excited at the same time. So, not something you're already good at, but something that you are scared to be good
Mhm.
at because you think, wow, this is just so grand.
Mhm.
I can't possibly make it happen, but oh my God, I wish I could.
Mhm.
That is the fitting to look for. And this is the fitting to follow if you want to live your purpose.
Yeah, it's so true. And, there's like a bone of that with our brain that, when we do things our brain doesn't want to do or that we're scared of, that is
Mm.
where new brain synapses are forming. That's where we're growing new brain cells to help us. So it's happening on that level of purpose, but also inside of our body at the same time. And there's a lot to that, and we can get to it in future episodes. But I can speak very highly of that, of how accurate that is. I'm really wondering, a lot of guys are like, okay, I'm going to do my purpose. My purpose is I want to make more money. My purpose is
Okay.
I want to get more girls or travel or something like that. And it's very ego based, a lot of this stuff. And
Yeah,
I mean, it's not guys' fault. They just don't really know any other way. And a
of
lot of the
course.
traditional self help kind of talks about it through that lens. So, can you talk about what is like a healthy way for a guy today to use his ego?
All right. A healthy way to use the ego is to understand what it is and use it as an interface. In other words, the ego really was supposed to be like a translating device, kind of your mental AI that connects the level of your soul that knows your purpose and the level of your higher self, which is your actual self as a person. And with most people, they never unlock the level of their higher self, meaning
Mm,
that the ego that used to be, well, that was meant to be just an agent that helps you on your journey becomes the master. And so the reason why people suffer and have very unsatisfying lives is because, again, their concept of self is grounded in their ego. And the healthy way of using ego is to understand that the ego is only a tool for you to achieve your goals, but you mustn't ground your identity in it. And what you mentioned earlier about someone thinking, oh, yeah, my purpose is to make as much money as possible. Well, it's not those people's fault that they think that way because they are being sold that. Because it's really easy to sell a program to someone saying, hey, pay me X amount of money and I'm going to take you to a purpose, which, by the way, is perfectly aligned with all your ego goals. You will look good, people will admire you, girls will want you, and all the money in the world is going to be yours. And they're like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. So this is an easy selling point, and it's understandable why people want to do that, but let's be realistic here. And apart from, you see, living your purpose, it's like working out. It's a lot like working out. And yes, there are people out there who will tell you that this magic pill will give you a six-pack in 2 hours. And you can meditate like a monk if you listen to this one frequency on YouTube and all this stuff. But if we think realistically, creating a healthy and strong body takes time, and creating a strong and powerful mind also takes time. And you need to do it in the right way, as explained before. You need to make sure that your routine is aligned with your goals and with the type of person that you are. And so I would say using your ego in the optimal way means using it as designed. So searching for the right kind of information and putting it together in a logical way, asking questions, challenging what they tell you. Because as I said earlier, there are lots of people out there who just use marketing tactics to achieve lots of sales, regardless of whether the product delivers or not.
mm.
Again, it's just the truth of the marketplace. It happens everywhere, right? It happens in self-development as well. And so one should use their ego conscious mind to challenge what they know, to ask questions, and to see whether this thing is actually right for them. And thing is, when something looks too good to be true, it usually is.
Yeah, yeah, totally is. That's a really good way to see the ego, because I like how you frame things. It's almost like, life in our body is like a system, much like a computer. And when we see it that way, it's actually like a problem we can solve. The post, this like ethereal, non-tangible thing, which it is in some ways. It just seems, especially for entrepreneurs who are very, systems driven, that we can figure this stuff out. And to do so, we just have to make a couple adjustments, but you just have to figure out what the right model is to
Yeah.
use first, and then you can fly. Speaking of some of these models and systems, we have what a lot of it is self-help. with the Andrew Tates, with the Jordan Petersons, with all these other people today, creating millions of views, beta, alpha, sigma. Can you
Yeah.
talk about, I mean, a lot of people know what those are, but maybe just briefly touch on what each of them mean, the quick definition, and what's the new one that's more aligned to the new era?
Sure. Oh, I love this question. So I think most people know what the alpha is. It's basically a big, loud guy who wants to be the first at all costs in everything, whether deservingly or not. And he basically gets in his own way because he tends to act where he shouldn't act just to prove himself. You know the type, just being edgy all the time, just proving that he's the king of the tribe, just he's the lion at all times, and just a bit intense. And also, well, there are people like there who just born that way. Everyone else who tries to emulate that, and lots of people do, because again, it's being sold to guys as the way to be, and the masculine man is someone, say, like a warrior, like a Spartan, like someone like that. So he has to be ripped, naked, and preferably with a sword, preferably running around, and preferably really loud. And so obviously I'm taking a jocular approach to it, but really, this is what the stereotypical alpha is in most people's minds. And I want to say that while every mindset type has its own advantages and disadvantages, we need to look at the picture from a broader view. And so when you consider advantages and disadvantages, same like with a project, say you have several business projects to choose from, and the smart move is not to choose the one that looks good, but the one that gives you the most advantages long term. And so with the mindset, it's the same thing. So the beta mindset is really simple. Basically, these are people who are mostly submissive and docile, very helpful, family oriented, uh, tend to live kind of plain and unexciting lives because they prefer to be led, and they don't want to lead themselves like the alphas do. So these two are basically happy together because the alphas want to lead, the betas want to be led, and so they create this this sort of arrangement. But there is also, as propagated by Andrew Tate and people like him, the Sigma mindset that is being heavily romanticized, and this is because the Sigma doesn't actually fit the norm,
Hmm.
because especially for guys who come from the beta background and who don't feel they can be that loud and that edgy to classify as alphas, Sigma is very appealing because, well, you're not a beta anymore. You seem to be someone cooler because Sigma is a lone wolf
Hmm.
who just follows his own rules and his own ideas and builds his own life, which you would think seems okay, right? Almost romantic, as I said. But
Hmm.
the problem with that is the new era is not the era of lone warriors and lone wolves. So every time you see someone teaching that paradigm, they're actually doing you a disservice, because if you follow down this road, you are, so to speak, swimming against the current of time,
Hmm.
meaning that people who do things the right way are going to overtake you. So you are losing time by doing things in the wrong way. And with the Sigma mindset, being on your own, and like, look at Andrew Tate, who basically projects everyone is an enemy kind of vibe.
Hmm.
And if you do that, you're losing the opportunity to bring people together and to collaborate and to inspire them in a healthy way, not by putting them down and showing yourself as the leader of the tribe, but rather bringing them up and sharing that leadership and that agency and that self-empowerment, wisdom as well.
Mm.
And so this brings us to the Delta mindset, that is a healthy balance between all those different extremes. Because if you have the Delta mindset, you're a lot more mobile in your behaviors. You basically just follow common sense. If you need to lead, you can lead, but without being all aggro about it. You can just take that responsibility and perform your duties because you want to help, not because you are driven by the desire for self-aggrandization, but because you think it's the right thing to do.
Mm.
And conversely, when the situation requires you to follow someone else's lead, you can do it without your ego getting into fits because you think, well, if that someone else is more qualified to do this than I am, then it's fine.
Mm.
And so you have this healthy balance without being too edgy or without being too submissive. You actually know what you stand for, because one of the main features of the Delta mindset is the desire for self-development and becoming better.
Mm.
But unlike the alphas, for example, who want to be better than everyone else, us sigmas share it too. The Delta want to be better than he was yesterday or the day before yesterday. And this is the competition with yourself that gives you the greatest benefits. Thing is, you can never be really objectively better than someone else because someone else is a different person. They're not like you. So it's like comparing apples and pears. You can't. They're different things. So you can't be better than someone else. And so you would be just wasting your time and getting tired and frustrated in the process. But you can and you should strive to be better than you were yesterday. And so this drive for self-development, purpose, and service and collaboration are the main assets of the Delta mindset that allow people with that mindset to really thrive in the current times.
I really like that, especially because in our current times, it's so complex. We have the internet, we have so much going on, and to be able to be dynamic, to not be attached to one thing, and to be free and mobile and do these things, that is what I see is ultimately going to win over anybody else who's stuck to the old ways or
Yeah,
stuck to one thing just in general. It just feels sticky versus if you're light, you're mobile, you can move around. That is just a really good way to see. I mean, like Bruce Lee says, be like water, and you can adapt and be dynamic to whatever the situation calls for. And like you were saying, it's kind of that Kaizen mentality to make it, today better than yesterday and baby steps along the way. And at that point you're leaning into that 1% edge. You're going to be making progress, and that's okay. And that's probably going to satisfy the ego too. So,
absolutely.
um,
Absolutely. This I see, by the way, this as living on your own terms, because many guys, especially young guys, are being sold this idea of, well, follow this guru and you will live your life on your own terms. But what they really do is they try to make you follow their ways. They don't encourage you to look deeply inside yourself. They encourage you to follow the pattern that they give you, to emulate it the best you can. And as soon as you start emulating something else, you are not living on your terms.
yeah, totally agree. Well, thank you so much, Jay. Lots of insight here, and I can't wait to dive deeper on some of these topics in future episodes together.
Likewise.
Where can people hear about you, access some of your information, your content?
Well, they can go on my website, which is newerasuperhero.com, one word, and download their free purpose audit. It's 35 questions that are going to give you crystal clarity on who you actually are as a person. And you may be surprised with some answers. You may be really genuinely surprised to discover that you actually wanted that thing all along. So it's really going to streamline your business, your life, and just what you're doing with your time. So it really helps you be a lot more mindful and effective in your life. So it's newerasuperhero.com and it's a free download.
Awesome. And we'll put that all down in the show notes below. Thank you, Jay. And thank you so much, guys, for tuning in today. We'll see you again in the next one.